So over here in this poem, Roald Dahl is trying to uh, emphasize on the harmful effects of watching too much of television. All right. Uh, he has written this poem at a time when television was newly invented. So it was a new thing, new adventure for the people, and they were so fascinated by it, especially the children, that they kept sat glued to the TV screens, and they would continue watching the television for hours and hours. So he's trying to emphasize that this should not be the case. If we keep staring at the television, we would become zombies. We would lose our thinking power, we'll lose our creativity, and it's going to harm us very badly. So he's trying to make the readers aware of the problems, and urges them to read books instead of watching television. All right. So he says the most important thing we've learned so far as children are concerned is never let them near your television set, or better still, just don't install that idiotic thing at all. So he says that as far as the children are concerned, we have learned the most important thing that we've learned is that do not let your children go near television sets. All right. If you pay attention, he has used the word never 3 times, and twice he has used it in capital letters. Why is it being done so? Just to emphasize on the fact that you should never allow your children to approach the television. All right, you can underline that and write over there that capital letters and repetition of words have been used to emphasize, for emphasis. All right. He's used a repetition of words and made use of capital letters for emphasis. So he says that he's addressing all the British parents and telling them that the most important thing one must keep in mind while raising the children is to keep them away from the television sets. All right. He says that, or he would rather suggest that they should not even install a television set in their households. All right, that is a better option would be, or a better solution would be, not to install the television set at all in their homes. All right, if there would be no television set, the children would not waste their precious time watching them. All right, the idiotic thing refers to the television. He says that you should not install the television set, the idiotic thing, at all, and so the children would be saved from wasting their precious time on this television. All right. Then he says, in almost every house we have been, we've watched them gaping at the screen. Gaping would mean sitting and just staring at the television. All right. Losing all the senses for the outer world and just watching television with eyes open. All right, so he says that in almost every house, we find that the children are sitting and just staring at the television screen, and they are lost in that world itself, and they are no longer aware of the outer world. All right. So he says they loll and slop and lounge about. That is, they act lazily and they just keep, lying down or sitting down in front of the television. That is, they are idling their time away. They are just sitting in a relaxed mode in front of the television. They are not bothered about anything else. They are just lazing away in front of the television. All right. Then he says that last week in someone's place we saw a dozen eyeballs on the floor. So this bracket thing you can write over there that hyperbole is being used, that is exaggeration is used. The poet is exaggerating things to make us aware of how harmful things are in this way. He says that last week, we know that in someone's place what had happened, that the children, they stared so much on the television that the eyeballs came out of the eye sockets and they were just rolling on the floor. There were a dozen eyeballs on the floor. That is, they stared so much on the television that their eyeballs came out. He presumes that he had undertaken some research on the bad effects of watching television, and he means it's presumed that he has visited many homes to see what the children are doing. And in most of the homes, he has found the children lazily wasting their time, wasting all day staring at the television without doing any productive work. And then the poet is exaggerating that the effect of watching television, staring television for too long is so hard. The children are staring the television so hard that their eyeballs fall off their eye sockets. All right. And he says that a week before in someone's house, someone had actually seen a dozen eyeballs on the floor, rolling about on the floor. All right. So he is using exaggeration over here.
Ilma, are you there in the class? Ilma Abrar, are you there in the class?
All right. Then he says that they sit and stare and stare and sit. All right. Until they are hypnotized by it, until they are absolutely drunk with all that shocking, ghastly junk. All right. Hypnotized would mean that they are so powerfully attracted by it that they almost lose their senses. All right. They are being totally controlled by the television. Uh, Here, the poet is saying that in most of the houses, the children, they are continuously watching the television. They are just sitting and staring at the television and staring at the television and just sitting ideally, lazily, not doing anything else. All right, he wants the children to do some productive work and not just, spend their time idling away in front of the television. He says that they are so lost in watching the television that it looks as if they were mesmerized or totally fascinated and controlled by the scenes in the TV, and their entire attention is has been captured by the television screen, and they cannot pay attention or concentrate on anything other than what they are watching. That is, they are not aware of the outer world or whatever is going just by them in the house or outside. They're not aware of anything. They're just involved in what is being shown on the television. They're so mesmerized, so controlled by it that they have totally, their attention is focused on the television screen itself, and they have no idea about what's going on in the outer world. All right. So they continuously sit there staring at the television, not blinking their eyes, and it seems he's using the word drunk. All right. So it's like that there is some kind of intoxication that the television is placing over the minds of the children. All right. The children are being intoxicated by the effects of television, or they are becoming addicted to the television. All right, it's like some hungover. They are hungover by the effects of television. It they He says that they are absolutely drunk with all that shocking, ghastly junk. Some all the whatever horrible things are being shown on the television, they are just being involved in that, and they are becoming addicted to watching television. They are getting intoxicated by whatever horrible things are being shown on the television. All right. Then he says, oh, yes, we know it keeps them still. They don't climb out the windowsill. They never fight or kick or punch. They will leave you free to cook the lunch and wash the dishes in the sink. But did you ever stop to think? So he says now he's addressing the parents, and he says that yes, I know when I'm telling you that do not allow your children to watch the television so much. What would your reply be? I know that you're going to say that because of the television, your children they sit down properly, they do not run here and there, they do not jump out of the window, they do not fight with each other, they do not kick or punch each other. That is, they are not involved in all kinds of mischievous activities. They are just sitting at one place and being engrossed in the television. You are going to tell me that. So he says that I know you people are going to tell me that they leave you free. They do not keep nagging behind you. They leave you free so that you can easily cook, prepare the lunch. They do not cause any trouble or throw tantrums or create problems for you. They leave you free to do all kinds of household work. You are able to cook the lunch properly. You are able to wash the dishes that are present in the sink, the dirty dishes. You are able to clean them. All right. So he says that I know that you are going to tell me all these things, that the children get involved or engrossed in watching the television, and they do not trouble you, and can easily finish your household chores easily. But then he says, but did you ever stop to think, to wonder just exactly what this to your beloved taught? So he says that if you think that the if you are thinking about the positive things, that they're not troubling you, you are able to do your work easily, then have you ever thought about the negative things, or you're just thinking about the positive points? What is it that you are paying attention to? Have you paid attention to what this thing is exactly doing to your child? Have you ever thought about that? All right, he says it rots the sense in the head, it kills the imagination dead. Again, the capital letters have been used to emphasize the harmful effects of television on the minds of the on the delicate minds of the young children. He says that what it does, it affects their thinking ability. All right, it rots the sense in the head means their thinking ability rots means it veers away. All right, they lose their thinking ability, and it kills the imagination dead. It kills their imagination. The children, they lose their creativity. All right. Please keep noting down the important points. Please keep noting down. First of all, that capital letters are again being used to emphasize the negative impacts of the television. Then it rots the senses in the head would mean that it is killing their it is degrading their thinking ability, and then it is killing their imagination. They cannot imagine, and their creativity, their innovative minds are being affected, and their creativity is being lost. Over here, if you pay attention, personification is being used both for the television as well as imagination. The television is killing the imagination. All right. So the television is doing some work like a person. It is killing the imagination. Whereas dying is also a human thing. All right. We die. So the imagination is dying. So it is behaving like a living thing. And therefore both the TV and the imagination are being personified. The TV is killing and the imagination is dying. So personification is being used for two things over here. All right. Then it says it clogs and clutters up in the mind. It makes a child so dull and blind he can no longer understand a fantasy, a fairy land, His brain becomes as soft as cheese. His powers of thinking rust and freeze. He cannot think, he only sees. So all the negative impacts have been written over here, and you can notice that all of it is in the capital letters. The complete sentences, they are in capital letters. All right. So the whole, you can say the whole stanza is in capital letters, just to emphasize on the poet wants to, make the people aware. He wants to emphasize on the negativity of the television. He says that as their imagination is skilled, they won't be able to understand all the fantasy and fairyland stories. They won't be able to imagine those. When like when I tell you of the Disneyland and fairyland stories, you can imagine a world in within your mind, where fairies, small fairies are flying away, the fountain is flowing, the sky is glittering. So when I say these words, your mind is creating a picture. All right, you do not see it with your eyes, but the mind sees the picture where all of these things are happening. All right, it's true, right? You people are able to imagine things when I am saying such lines. Your mind's eye can see a picture where all of this is happening. But for these children, the poet says that they won't be able to imagine things. When you tell something, you talk about fantasy, they won't know what fantasy is. All right. He says that it clogs and clutters up the mind. That is, it blocks the mind. Clog would mean that it blocks the mind, and clutters up the mind means that all the untidy things, they get filled up in the mind. All the untidy horrible things that are being shown on the television, it fills in the mind of the children, and they're not able, their innocence is lost, and they become dull, they become blind, they cannot understand what is fantasy, they're not able to imagine how a fairy land can be. All right, when they read stories about fairies and all the fantasy characters, fictional characters, they won't be able to imagine. All right, like when I talk about a giant, immediately a picture of a huge tall man, very heavily built, comes to your minds. All right, so you are able to imagine that, but such children whose brain has been all blocked and filled with untidy things, they won't be able to think or imagine all of these things. Then he says that their brain becomes weak, the thinking becomes rusted, that is, their thinking becomes, ineffective. They won't be able to think. Then he only sees. Their ability to think and imagine is skilled, and they can just see what is present in front of them. They cannot see with the mind's eye, they can see only with the actual eye that has been given to them. All right. So throughout the stanza, he is emphasizing on the negativity of the television. He says that their minds are being blocked. It is being filled with all the untidy things. Their thinking ability is being killed. They cannot make use of their mind's eye and imagine things, or understand what fantasy is. They can only see what is present just in front of their human eye, and their brain becomes, as soft as cheese, is again referring to that they are not able to think. Their thinking capacity is lost. All right. So as soft as the cheese is, simile, right? You can underline that. All right, you'll cry. All right, you'll say. But if we take the set away, what shall we do to entertain our darling children? Please explain. So he says that now, when I tell you, you've not thought about the negative impacts of the television, you just thought about the positive things, that they won't fight, they would leave you free, and you just quickly went and installed the television sets in your homes. But when I am telling you of the negative impacts, you are going to again shout at me or cry over here with me. The parents, they get frustrated. Why they are getting frustrated? Because uh, it's such a negative thing, so they would have to remove the television, and they do not want to remove the television from their houses. So they get frustrated and they say, okay, fine, all right, we understand what you're saying, but if we remove the television sets, if we take these away, then please tell me that what do we do to keep our children entertained. This television is keeping our children engrossed. So, but what should we do to replace it? Means what new thing should we get to keep our children engrossed all the time, to keep them entertained all the time? So the parents are demanding to know that. So the poet himself says that when I'm going to tell you all these things, you're going to ask me such questions, that what are you people going to do to keep your children entertained? I know that you are going to ask me such a question. So I have got the answer for this too. So when the poet, you find that when the poet is talking about the television, he's not just come up with the, come up and saying that go and please remove the television. He knows that what the parents would go through, what the children would go through, and he has come up with all kinds of solutions, and then he is saying to remove the television. He's got all the solution for the problems that might arise in removing the television sets from our home. So he says that when you ask me that how to keep our children entertained, I am going to answer. Do not worry, you won't have to worry, I'm going to tell you. We'll answer this by asking you what used the darling ones to do. How used they keep themselves contented before this monster was invented. So he says, so first I'm going to ask you people in return that what happened, what used to take place when this monster was not invented. All right, monster refers to the television. All right, you can underline over there and write monster refers to the television. So the poet answers the question by asking another question. He says that first you answer my question, that what the children, how did the children spend their time before the invention of the television? All right. So he says that how they used to keep themselves contented, or how they used to keep themselves entertained or engrossed before this television was invented. Have you forgotten? Don't you know? We'll say it very loud and slow. He says that if have you forgotten what they used to do? That you are asking me. Have you, don't you know what they used to do? That you need to ask me. All right, fine. Even if you've forgotten, I am going to say it very loud and clear. Why loud and clear? So that you get it straight, so that you understand it and not forget it again. So he says, they used to read. They read and read and read and read, and then proceed to read some more. So very making use of the dots, he is and making use of the capital letters. The poet is saying that he's speaking very slowly, one word at a time. And he says that they used to read and read. They read all the time, and then they read some more. All right. That means that what is happening, that he reminds the parents that the children, they how they engaged themselves in the previous times. He says that if I know that you people know how they used to keep themselves engrossed. But even if you've forgotten, I am going to tell you very loud and clear so that you understand it better. That is, these children, they continued reading more and more books. They kept reading, and reading was the major activity in those days. Usually what happened that at those in those time, most of the houses they had their own libraries. All right, and the children with a section for the children's separately. The children they used to read bedtime stories and all right. They had a habit of reading, and they would read all the time. All right, they used to spend their time reading. So the poet is emphasizing on this itself, that he the children, I am going to remind you that the children kept reading, and those times they used to spend their time reading. All right, so I'm stopping over here for a bit.